Hello. I want to talk to you about something. An event that happened almost 70 years ago. It's May 29th, 1953, 11:30 a.m. A gentleman by the name of Sir Edmund Hillary and Sherpa mountaineer Tenzing Norgay achieved the unthinkable, ascending to the highest point on Earth, having finally completed and conquered Mount Everest. A coveted goal set by many before them, most with fatal consequences. It took the pair 19 days to trek up to the summit. But it wasn't just them two. It was a group or expedition totaling 400 people, and they carted with them 4.5 metric tons of supplies and baggage. The team would trek, camp, prepare, plan, acclimatise, and trek again, all with that common goal in mind of conquering Everest. They'd physically use each camp to mark their progress along their way to the top. Since that day 70 years ago, almost 24,000 people have attempted the exact same feat. 10,000 of those have been successful. In fact, this image that circulated the internet just last year is the summit today. Last year, records were broken when around 891 climbers ascended to the same peak, a bit of a traffic jam to get to the top. So how did the once insurmountable Everest become so attainable? Well, according to The Economist, technology accounts for some of the gains, right? Oxygen tanks. They carry twice as much oxygen as they used to, with fewer leaks. Clothing technology has gotten a little bit better. They keep climbers warmer, they keep them safer. Even improvements in mapping and weather forecasting technology have really helped minimize the unknowns for climbers. But there are perhaps two major innovations which aren't so obvious that have actually helped the most. Sherpas have actually installed ropes and ladders which are used by most of the successful climbers to the peak of Everest. So a bit of an aid to get there. And there's also a burgeoning industry that's surrounded it, with a lot of agencies helping people get to the top of the mountain and come back down again alive. So a bit of a luxury for Sir Edmund Hillary 70 years ago, right? Told another way, a couple of early pioneers with a clear goal break new territory, and they conquer the unthinkable. As inspiration catches on, others start to follow suit. In fact, secondary industries start to get created to supply and further propel this action into reality. And finally, with advances in accessibility, industries start to form, market saturates, and the success of those early pioneers actually becomes relative child's play for anybody with a vaguely similar ambition. It's a familiar narrative, this analogy, and it speaks volumes about success within the tech startup ecosystem. Except there's just one catch. Markets, they're not like mountains at all, because the summit to be conquered exhaustingly becomes just another base camp in pursuit of the next. So success, it seems, is actually an ephemeral state, destined to expire. And in no industry is it truer than in the world of fast-growing technology businesses. As a startup founder myself, I wanted to come out here and share with you my own experience and my perspective, or an insider's look, if you will, of what it's like to establish and run and keep running a successful technology startup. This right here is the startup journey, the process. And in the process, success takes on a multitude of definitions throughout the various stages of that process. When you take an idea and you turn it into reality, it's exciting. It's a success. You win your first customer, success. You get to product market fit, the most coveted thing in the startup world. People actually want my product, success. You get funded, success. You then start to take on the world. You start to conquer industries, success. And then ultimately, right up to that exit, you get acquired, And success, it seems, comes to an end. But it doesn't. It keeps going. Because the eyes of the acquirer or the public markets are now right on you to continue to succeed. And if success were binary and had only one definition, modern day work would have a clearly defined start and a clearly defined end. However, success is a moving target that spurs the need to keep business in a constant state of flux. Put another way, it also propels the pressure to commit to a mantra of continuous growth. And founders in particular find it difficult to celebrate the small wins along the way, because with each victory becomes a greater pressure to hit the next challenge. It's no surprise that the second most stressful time for a founder is actually securing a fundraise. The most stressful time is once you've actually got the money in your bank account. So success takes on different meanings, but more importantly, start to delve into the psychology of motivation around achieving success in this never-ending cycle of goal setting, planning, attainment, and iteration, all in an effort to maintain a competitive edge. So it made me wonder, how must thought processes be altered if we are to accept that success itself is not an end state to be attained, but rather a continuous state in permanent beta to be maintained? There's a commonly held belief that once we achieve our goals, once we climb that summit, we'll be happy. So motivation should be pretty easy to come by, right? Sadly, it couldn't be further from the truth, because we all know and remember that deflating feeling when the high of achievement actually starts to wear off and the reality starts to sink in, where we start to look for the next big thing. This is better known as the arrival fallacy. It's a term that was coined by Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar, and he explained it as the illusion that once we make it, once we attain our goal or reach our destination, we will be happy, and we'll reach lasting happiness. But the reality is that achievement doesn't equate to happiness. We simply hit a point where the high of accomplishment wears off, and we realize not only that we are not satisfied, the worst part is we now lack the hope that we once had in achieving our original goal. So it's no wonder that the peaks and troughs of setting targets, hitting them and going back for more, in fact has a pretty dark side to it. A recent study that was released by Dr. Michael Freeman, he's a clinical professor at UCSF, and he's an entrepreneur himself. He actually found that half of all entrepreneurs reported having a mental health condition. Half. Among them, depression accounted for around 30% of all respondents. To put another way, 1 in 3 founders suffers from depression. So it's no wonder that suicidal thoughts are actually twice as likely in a founder than the average person in society. It's the intensity of setting these ambitious goals. And it doesn't just impact the leaders themselves. This is actually something that flows through organizations which are stretching for greatness. Toxic workplace cultures, burned out employees. The stretch goal paradox is what it's called, about overstretching and overreaching but not having the capabilities. And it flows from leaders that set their eyes on the unthinkable and continually hitting greater heights. Keeping an organization of eager employees engaged and motivated is actually one of the challenges that we face. And how do we do that? How do we keep them motivated and engaged on the ascent to the top? There's a fine line between setting goals that are achievable versus those that are simply impossible, all under the name of ambition. So at Shipit, what we do is we shoot for greatness, but we understand that greatness may not always come from the dramatic leaps. Sometimes it comes from those small, persistent steps. And creating a culture of winning at each step along the journey keeps people coming back for more each day. And it seems that actually embracing the arrival fallacy helps to benefit a company by ensuring leaders emphasize that we can offset the emptiness of achievement with successive goals that take the team members on a fulfilling journey one step at a time. The classic VC picture. Aside from the pressure inherent in pursuing these goals, one of the other enemies of sustaining success in tech startup world is an increasingly crowded, competitive marketplace. And there's now more funding available globally to good ideas than ever before. We're seeing around 250 billion US dollars being poured in to venture funding each year. $250 billion. Just for the sake of a relative comparison, it's a 653% increase of just over a decade ago. Coupled with this, the cost of entry is actually lower than it's ever been. Starting a business is simpler than ever. Cheap technology, simple SaaS applications have completely removed that need for seed capital to get an idea started. And in fact, this trend is perpetually accelerating. With the explosion of business-to-business SaaS applications, they actually start to fuel and enable more applications to materialize. To illustrate my point, and to almost draw that parallel to overcrowding at the summit, take marketing technologies. In 2007, there were 500 software-as-a-service marketing solutions on the market. You fast forward to just a couple of years ago, and there are now over 8,500 solutions vying for the exact same dollars in the market. Just like overcrowding at that summit, the increased accessibility means dozens of new contenders will continually enter the race with the same VC-backed mandate to win at all costs. And in these markets, success will never be a solid state. That's the market today. So the lesson here is to value the process, to value the journey over the destination. Breaking down that never-ending treadmill into achievable milestones that sit somewhere between the achievable and the inspirational. The silver lining is that success can continually be redefined by those that seek it. So I guess by finding motivation beyond what has been achieved, striving to realize your ultimate vision of the future in mutable, agile steps. This is the benefit of markets over mountains, the fact that they can be shaped, led, and defined by ambition, not the other way around. Thank you.